Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Gay News Network. I'm Jacob Miko, sitting in for Holly Landau.
And I'm Joe Liberatore. Topping our international news briefs, gays and lesbians around the world had hoped the new millennium would bring more progress for equal rights. As we review the year 2000, there is much to celebrate, but it's clear that much work still needs to be done. In the Middle East, a Saudi Arabian court sentenced 9 men to 2,400 lashes from a whip with lead tips. The punishment was doled out in 50 installments, with 15 days of rest between each beating. Additionally, each of the 9 men was sentenced to 5 years of prison. Their crime? Committing sexual acts with each other and dressing in women's clothing. And in a recent survey in Poland, only 12% of respondents knew someone who was gay. 79% opposed allowing gays to adopt children, and nearly 1/3 say that gays are diseased and need medical attention. And finally, in Africa, Namibia's Minister of Home Affairs urged a crowd of 700 new police officers to eliminate gays from the nation. This is not the first time the Home Affairs Minister spoke out against gays. Previously, he had declared that gay men should be castrated.
However, there was some progress made for gay rights around the world. The New Zealand Parliament chose Georgina Beyer, a transsexual member, to represent their nation at the United Kingdom's Conference of Parliaments. Queen Elizabeth kicked off the prestigious event held in London. After the conference, Beyer addressed the United Nations in New York on human rights and environmental issues. She also met with several gay and lesbian organizations in New York. And the law in Romania has raced ahead of many other European countries by forbidding discrimination based on sexual orientation. At the same time, the country is repealing Article 200, a law that dictates 5 years in prison for any same-sex relations, which could cause public scandal. Finally, with lots of fanfare and very little opposition, the Netherlands is now the first nation in the world to offer full marriage rights to gay and lesbian couples. A bill passed by the lower house of Parliament provides for legal marriage, adoption, rights, and divorce. The bill is expected to easily pass the upper house and soon become Dutch law.
You may recall GNN's coverage of a tragic bombing of the Admiral Duncan, a gay pub near London's Theatre District, where several people were killed, including a pregnant woman, while many others were seriously hurt. Shortly after the bombing, the Admiral Duncan project was launched. It was set up to help victims of that attack. Recently, the project received 5,000 British pounds from the London Methodist Church. That gift will help the Admiral Duncan project continue its counseling. The donation represents a major turnaround by the church, who only last year did not allow gay groups to meet in its Westminster's hall.
Now turning our attention to national news, Ruth Ellis, the oldest black lesbian in the U.S., died in October at age 101. Born in Springfield, Illinois on July 23, 1899, Ellis was the youngest of 4 children. A film, Living with Pride, Ruth Ellis at 100, played at lesbian and gay film festivals in 1999. It explored her life and her 30-year relationship with her female partner. Never living life in the closet, she was always active in the community. Just days before she died, Ellis attended the opening of a Detroit gay youth center that had been named in her honor.
The nation's largest gay and lesbian lobbying organization, the Human Rights Campaign, or HRC, is celebrating its 20th year. To make gay and lesbian equality a part of the national agenda, the HRC built political alliances in Congress and formed a large grassroots membership base. By the start of the 1990s, it had established a long tradition of enlisting celebrity spokespersons to speak at public events and appear in public service announcements. Some of the many people who have helped are Amanda Burse, Candace Gingrich, Isabel Sanford, Betty DeGeneres, Dan Butler, and Judy Shepard. Today, the organization has 300,000 members and a budget of $15 million. Recently, the HRC produced the Equality Rocks concert and was a major organizer of the Millennium March on Washington.
Over the past 20 years, many dreamed of a commercial gay network. Now it's finally a reality. The network, which describes itself as the Studio 54 of television, offers original programming. WOW is a fashion, arts, and music show. The Look is a dating game for gay men and lesbians. And the show 411 profiles gay icons from Elizabeth Birch to Tommy Tune. C1 TV also carries pre-produced programs such as Pet Shop Boys in Concert and the infamous BBC series Queer as Folk Part 1. Based in Florida, C1 TV plans to eventually have a 24-hour cable or satellite channel. For now, they lease 1 hour a week on cable stations in 25 U.S. cities.
Pat KRAMER vowed to never give in, but finally she decided she'd had enough. She could no longer take the ceaseless death threats and continuing assaults. The owner of the Cassanova, KRAMER stood up to 4 years of harassment after opening a gay bar and restaurant in rural Sommerset County, about 60 miles from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. From the moment the Cassanova opened in 1997, the owner and its patrons faced anti-gay rallies by the KKK, a gunshot blast fired at the club's front door, and religious protesters that shouted anti-gay slurs. Bishop Ronnie McRae and his congregation also stalked Cassanova customers with video cameras, taping them and threatening to out them to their families and employers. KRAMER repeatedly sought help from the HRC, the Land of Legal Defense and Education Fund, and her local police, but got no help. Finally, as business dropped off, KRAMER was forced to close the establishment. Now, she continues the fight by working with the FBI on an investigation they opened 2 years ago, and she also runs another gay bar in Pittsburgh suburbs.
The internet has been a boon to those seeking health information. Now people with HIV and AIDS can connect with each other through the Positive Images website at www.posimages.com. Also, Youth Guardian Services launched a Positive Youth email list. The list caters to the unique needs of HIV-positive youth and provides a safe place to meet people with similar experiences. Anyone 25 years or younger may visit www.youth-guard.org to sign up for the list.
Attention, gay men who fear needles, you're still in luck. You can keep ignoring blood drives at work and the desperate pleas to help replenish low blood supplies. A Food and Drug Administration committee recently voted to uphold a rule from 1985 that bans blood donations from men who have had sex with men anytime since 1977. The committee dismissed a proposal submitted by gay activists and health advocates that would have lowered the time gay men are barred from giving blood from 15 to 5 years. Proponents of the current policy insist that it minimizes the HIV risk to the blood supply. They note that despite current testing and screening, for every 500,000 units of blood, 1 unit still has the AIDS virus.
In related HIV and AIDS news, Native Americans have formed an anti-AIDS coalition in Michigan. The coalition visits schools and powwows to teach HIV prevention and distribute condoms. Because of the high rate of sexually transmitted disease among Native Americans, the organization is concerned that these communities are truly at risk for HIV.
Not only has the web helped provide more health information, but the visibility and resources for gays and lesbians have increased with the internet boom as well. For example, there is a cyber network called Classic Dykes for lesbians in midlife and beyond. View the Classic Dyke of the Month or post and read musings on the popular message board by women who came out at the age of 40 or later at the Classic Dyke website. Or, if you're in the mood for a bizarre, tongue-in-cheek humor at the expense of the religious right, check out Betty Bowers is a Better Christian Than You. Bowers is an epic caricature of the religious right who runs several profitable programs such as Crack Whore Ministries. She also offers fashion tips for Judgment Day, spiritual stock ticker tape, and naturally, reasons why she's a better Christian than you. You can find links to these and other websites mentioned on GNN by clicking on the links section at www.gaynewsnetwork.org. Later on GNN, we touch on an issue that some say is clearly black and white, the lack of gays and lesbians of color on TV. Michael Boatman of ABC's Spin City gives us his view.
We'll also talk to the director of the Community Center for Gays and Lesbians in the capital of Scotland. But first, in the Washington Report, Joe Liberatore sits down with singer Jimmy Somerville before his performance at DC's Gay Pride Festival. After this break.
Hi, we're the cast of Queer as Folk, and you're watching the Gay News Network.
seeks out ways to preserve the rainforest without an advanced education no university could ever give.
After 30 years of working in business, Peace Corps was a labor of love.
To thousands of Americans, Peace Corps was the memory of a lifetime. Your experience can help you do something memorable.
Their challenge was growing a whole new crop, but my reward was the experience of making a difference.
It was the best experience I ever had.
If you have experience in areas such as forestry, the environment, small business, nursing, health, agriculture, or education, you can build a lifetime of memories in just 2 years. Call Peace Corps, 1-800-424-8580. It's still the toughest job you'll ever love.
Now it's time for the latest installment of the Washington Report. On this segment, we spotlight celebrities and activists that pass through the U.S. Capitol to support a cause or speak their minds.
Past Capitol Pride festivals in Washington, D.C. have hosted performers such as the Village People, Paul Lukakis, Laura Branigan, and the Weather Girls.
2000's Pride Festival brought out someone that many in the USA believed was gone for good, Jimmy Somerville. Joe Liberatore was fortunate to catch up with the diminutive Scotsman with a large voice just before his screaming return to the American stage.
Dubbed the Prince of Wales for the way he works his screaming falsetto, singer Jimmy Somerville's style is reminiscent of the 70s disco diva Sylvester.
It's like half of me was shy, but half of me was a little kind of like exhibitionist.
Really?
Yeah. My mum says, which I can find amusing, is like hard, because eventually then when I did become like, you know, I suppose a pop star or whatever, it's like when I was a kid, I used to just hide behind the curtains in the living room, and I used to close the curtains, and she said I would be there for ages, and everybody would just have to pretend that I wasn't there.
You didn't see the shoes sticking out.
That was it. I used to have to sit there for ages, and then I would just open the curtains and just go, ta-da!
As the front man of Bronski beat, the outspoken Somerville burst out of the music industry closet from the start with the release of his first record in 1984. The group's first mega hit, Small Town Boy, shared the experience of rejection that gay youth often face.
Yeah, Small Town Boy is a special video because it really is, it is very specific, and it just, there's no pussyfooting around, you know, there's no ambiguity there.
Yeah.
There's like, you know, you do see the cruising in the pool,
Right.
You see the kind of queer bashing, you know, so it's about, and it's such a great little story of everyday life. And even though it's set in London, it could be any city in the world, any town in the world, and it's like, and even because it was in London, I think especially because even if you're in a big city, that doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're going to somehow escape homophobia or discrimination, so I think it's a special video.
I found out in your teenage years that you and a friend went to London. You found an older benefactor who let you live in his attic. Do you recommend that as a good way for kids across America today to leave their small towns?
We came to London, but it was so fantastic. It's like, so we decided to stay, and so and eventually, I mean, our money ran out, so we ended up becoming like, you know, like male prostitutes at Piccadilly Circus. Right. But then we met this guy who was a surgeon who lived in Hampstead, and he had an attic in his house, and he approached us, and there's nothing. We didn't have to, you know, there was no sex involved. There was nothing. He didn't want anything from us. I think all he wanted from us was some kind of to know that we were maybe going and kind of like, you know, get ourselves sorted out. And I think I would say that to someone if there was no other option. There may be such awful struggles and maybe terrible times ahead, but I always think I would rather promote that than someone just basically stay in the closet for the rest of their life.
So take the chance, it might pay off.
You know, in life, it's like, my God, you get one crack, take the chance, you know.
When his first song broke into the U.S. college radio circuit, debuted on MTV, and jumped to the #3 spot on the UK music charts, Small Town Boy cemented Jimmy Somerville as an outspoken gay pop icon.
Because I was not so much maybe the first person to be out, but the first successful commercial artist who was really not even just sort of saying, oh, like, I'm a fag, and it's like, oh, look at me, I can wave my hands around and I can skip around and I can be really camp and whatever. I was actually just saying, well, the sexuality is part of my life. I'm a gay man, but this is my life, this is who I am. I was politicising my sexuality, and at the time, I think in the mid-80s, that was a really important time for gay men as far as politicising their sexuality, you know, so I was part of just, I think, a historical movement.
Small Town Boy was followed by Why, where Somerville questioned the motives of gay bashers. 1 year later, Bronski Beat was no more. Somerville moved on to form a new group, the Communards, and released several hits, including So Cold the Night and a cover of Thelma Houston's Don't Leave Me This Way, which shot up the UK record charts and cracked the difficult US Top 40 market. Now, well into his solo career, Somerville continues to be fun, controversial, and at all times himself. His last album, Manage the Damage, was dedicated to Matthew Shepard. The first album from Somerville in nearly 5 years, and it proved he hadn't lost the golden voice. His lyrics seem wiser, more mature, and introspective. On Manage the Damage, Somerville sings frankly about sex, intergenerational love, and promiscuity. Lay Down is a song all about the glories of oral sex, which once got him arrested in London's Hyde Park.
It's exciting when you come round. Something special is going down. You provide me my frozen house. Make me.
With that, my interview is done. Jimmy and I had both finished talking about our favorite subject, him.
I just like interviews because for me it's like, I think they do tend to kind of like be less about music and they tend to be more about me and the music as part of me and me as a whole, so, and I just love talking about me.
Now GNN travels to Somerville's home country of Scotland to further investigate the gay life of Scots.
That's right, Jacob. GNN producer Randy Legursky and I found a little spot called the Nexus Cafe when we were cold and hungry. It turned out that it was also the Edinburgh Community Center for Gays and Lesbians. The director, FIONA Horn, sat down with us by the fireplace and told us about growing up gay in the capital of Scotland and the history of the community center.
I've lived in Edinburgh all my life. I was born here. I'm 30 years old. Sort of been out about in the scene for maybe around the past 6 years. Sort of went out a lot when I was younger and dabbled, and then they were back in again and came back out. Sort of started going out into the pubs and the clubs when I was about 25.
Tell me a little bit more about the center and how, I guess, when you were coming out, how you became sort of, how you migrated from the pubs to the center and how you eventually began to take over and end up as a director.
Well, my interest in the centre was that, initially was a business interest. It came, my business partner here, we were working on something else and we saw the cafe was up for sale. Although all the place is owned by the community project, we all lease separately our little business. So we saw the lease up for sale, so we thought, oh, we'll go down. And that was the first time I'd ever stepped in here. That was when I was 27. Came in and had a look and thought, it was quite good.
Well, what is the name of this place? Like, could you sort of describe this to our audience, how it's a multi-function purpose?
Yeah, this is the, well, we just call it the LGB Centre, or the Centre for short.
That's for lesbian, gay.
It's Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual Community Project Limited are the people who actually own this building. That is it's a group of people who are members, of which I'm the chairperson of. We've got directors who started the day-to-day running of the centre. Basically in the centre, we're two floors. We've got a basement floor underneath us. On the top floor is more where all the commercial businesses are. We have a shop there which sells everything from gay magazines, books, videos, clothing.
Jewelry and accessories.
Yeah, Scott designs a lot of his own clubwear, which, you know, again, a lot of the straight community come in now and use the shop to buy the clubwear. Yeah, they'll come in to buy other stuff as well. And in here we have what's really sort of seen as the heart of the centre, is the cafe, which is licensed. We sell drink, food, have internet. We have live music on, we have quiz nights, lots of things. Going downstairs, we have a therapeutic massage business, which is people who are sort of looking at holistic approaches to health. You can get colour therapy, Reiki, spiritual healing, massage, Thai massage, all done down there. And then with those businesses we support the centre for the people who are the Pride organisers. We have their offices downstairs, and we also operate, the bisexual phone line operates from here. So, you know, they have all the magazines, we have all the gay literature here, you know, leaflets they need to pick up to get to know about what's on in Edinburgh.
That brings us to a really great point here. There's something, if you could explain this to our audience, about something called Section 28. If you could give a little bit of a history about what that is.
Basically, it prohibited any local authority from publicising homosexuality, whether that was like putting, you know, billboards or posters out in the street, and it also prohibited schools from teaching about homosexuality as the norm type thing. And just now there's a lot of, you know, work going on to turn it all back. I think there's a few steps.
If you had come out in school, I understand that if you had told a teacher you wanted information, Section 28 would prohibit them from giving you information. Us anything, and if you were not of age, that they would actually they'd be required by law to tell your parents.
You know, one boy here in Britain committed suicide because he was under homophobic attacks at school. The school didn't do anything about it. For a young person of 15, there isn't an awful lot. Luckily now we have like Stonewall Youth Group, who are a group who have a phone line as well for young people to phone up. But if you don't know about that, then you're never going to find that out unless you just sort of work it out for yourself.
In the next 30 years of your lifetime, what are your sort of thoughts and hopes for everything from the repeal of Section 28 to the local community here, and in fact the Lesbian and Gay Bisexual Centre?
Well, I hope that in the next 30 years that the centre's still here. It's definitely a much needed resource. A lot of people use it for all the reasons that I said before. And I think, so basically I would just hope that, you know, that everyone, no matter where, can live in equality.
Since I spoke with Fiona, the Scottish Parliament has struck down Section 28. With other barriers against gays and lesbians in the UK falling, such as the recent drop of the ban on gays in the British military, many gay rights activists believe it won't be too long before England also repeals that law. Now for an issue that some see as more than black and white.
Reporter Bill Line asked Spin City's Michael Boatman, a black man that plays a gay character, what it's like to be a double minority on a TV show.
As an African American who is certainly concerned with images and negative images and positive images in entertainment, I completely understand in some ways the importance and the power of these images. And so I'm always leery of playing any role and dovetailing sort of into any particular stereotype about anything. I love surprising people, and it seems to me that people are surprised by characters who don't act stereotypically, and I think entertained as well. And that's my aim, and that's our goal on the show, is to tell funny stories for half an hour and then, you know, let people go on about their lives. But it's very important. I mean, I'm outraged many times by things that I see as a minority on television, and I feel like those images don't represent me, my life, or anyone's lives that I know. And I understand that the feeling must run very much the same in the gay community.
Do you feel in any way you're somewhat a trailblazer for maybe a minority that you may not be a member of?
A trailblazer. I suppose that's the kind of thing that'll only be known in the future, really. It's sort of hard to say at this point in time, but I do feel like we're sort of daring on our show, and it was a daring move to cast someone like me to play a role like this. So in that sense, I suppose you could say, yeah, I do feel somewhat placed in that role, but more than anything, I think if there's any sort of trailblazing feeling about this character, it's just that his story is an important part of the human story, and that there's I don't know that there's a political edge, even though it's a political show, you know. But I don't know, so many characters that I've seen, both gay characters and characters that represent other minorities, are sometimes so noble and so perfect and so untouchable that they become, in my opinion, not very interesting.
Are you happy with the role, and do you see yourself sticking with it for a while?
Yeah, I'm extremely happy with the role. I'm happy, first of all, I'm an actor. I'm always happy for a job. But no, it's a great job, and it's a great chance for me to do something that I think is important, and that is to sort of alert people to the idea that this is a part of the human story. It's not some aberration from I don't believe that it's something that people choose or any of that stuff. It's just, it's part of the human tableau, and I think it has to be understood like so many other aspects of that tableau. And if in some small way I've been able to help that along, then I think I'm been incredibly fortunate.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. If you or your group has a news tip for GNN, if you have questions on stories you just saw, write to us at gaynewsnetwork@AOL.com. For more information about GNN or to watch clips online, point your browser to www.gaynewsnetwork.org.
For the Gay News Network, I'm Jacob Miko.
And I'm Joe Liberatore. Thanks for joining us.